Hey guys, what's going on, and welcome back to What Shall We Do Next. And today I wanted to do a movie review. I haven't done one of those in a while, but I watched a movie a few days ago and I wanted to do a review on it. It is Children of the Corn, and it is the first time I've ever seen a Children of the Corn movie. Apparently there is 11 in total, the original being from like 1984, but the one that I watched was the new one, which is like 2020, 2023 sometimes it says. It was released in 2023, but they started filming it in 2020, but then it got delayed because of like COVID and everything. There is going to be spoilers in this, so if you don't like spoilers, then skadoodle. So I'll tell you guys the premise of the movie first before I get into the review. Possessed by a spirit in a dying cornfield, a 12-year-old girl in Nebraska recruits other children in her small town to go on a bloody rampage and kill all the adults and anyone else who opposes her. Soon, a bright high school student won't go along with the plan and becomes the town's only hope for survival. The movie was directed by Kurt Wimmer, and it is an adaptation of the original one, but it's not like it's like a reboot, but it's not connected to any of the others in the franchise. Now, I'll be honest, it wasn't a very memorable movie. I literally watched it a couple of days ago, and I've already forgotten most of it, but I'll tell you guys what I do remember. There is some, like, pretty iconic scenes. I would say the movie was pretty good up until the end. Now, we'll get to that. The movie pretty much starts with a little girl. Her name is Eden, and she's just a normal little girl playing on like a rocking horse, and this guy comes out of the cornfield, and he's a little kid as well. He looks to be really distressed and stuff, like he's dirty and whatever, and he looks a little, I guess, traumatized, or like not really him, if you get what I mean. Like, you can instantly tell there's something wrong with this kid. But Eden, who I guess knows him, turns to him and says, "How long were you out in the cornfield this time, huh? Was it like a week?" And he just like says something to her, but I can't really remember. I should probably watch the movie like the day of making a review, because especially if it's a movie like this that's just so forgetful. Basically, he just walks past her and he goes into it's like a children's orphanage, and he just like kills all of the adults in there. But then like the adults in the town and the police and everything try to get the killer, and they gas him out to get him out of there, but in doing so, they also killed like all of the other orphans. This causes a pretty big shitstorm, and it just leads on from there. There's this high school girl who's a little older than all the other children. She's walking through the cornfield, and she's with her brother. Her name is, I thought they were calling her Belle, but in the cast it says Boleyn. Like Anne Boleyn, the Queen of England, one of the queens that was like beheaded by Henry VIII. Her name is Boleyn. But it sounded like they were saying Belle to me. I'd have to watch it again and really listen, but I'm pretty damn sure they were saying Belle. And her brother's name was Cam. That scene kind of gave me like Jeepers Creepers 2 vibes, or like Jeepers Creepers 1, because like Dari and Trish, brother and sister, having like the typical brother and sister banter, like just picking on each other, messing around, and they're walking through a cornfield, which is a very Jeepers Creepers setting. The corn in this field is like dying. They're talking about getting, like, there's a whole like town meeting with the mayor and stuff like that. They're talking about like how they could get subsidies from like the government, as long as they just abandon the idea of having like the cornfield is basically the economy for this small town. There's all sorts of problems with it, and because these two kids are walking through, apparently, like, I don't know if this is true or not, but apparently, like, the girl, Boleyn, was saying to her brother that, like, this corn is poisonous, don't, like, ingest it or anything like that, and he's messing around, and doing it, but then he blows it in her face, I remember now, and she, like, starts to hallucinate weird things and stuff like that. Anyway, I won't tell you guys the whole movie, but blah, blah, blah. Later on in the movie, the kids decide to revolt against the adults, because the adults opt to, like, they have this big meeting, like I said, like in the town hall, and they all agree to abandon the cornfields and just get subsidies from the government. But the kids are like, no, we want to protect our cornfield, like, this is our future. Don't we get a say in this? And all the adults are kind of laughing because they're just little kids. But then the kids take revenge. They start to just kill everybody in the town, basically, and they round them all up. Put all of the adults in like the jail cells and stuff like that. The kids have all got weapons. They've got chainsaws, some of them. They've got like knives and sickles and all kinds of different weapons. and they're using the machinery too, like the harvesters and stuff like that. It got a little silly, I will say that. I mean, I know it's fictional, it's not true, but it just was like not really believable because all the adults in the town, which keep in mind there's only about probably 10 or 12 kids, but there's a whole town of adults. And all the parents too. Like, they rounded up all of the parents and everything like that. Eden, the little girl, she is the leader of the kids. And she is like the worst one of all. She's the one who decides what gets done to everyone. Apparently she was lost in the field once and she was out there for a while. And this thing that they call He Who Walks lives in the fields. And apparently he took care of her and stuff like that. We do get to see He Who Walks at the end of the movie. And it's bad. It's real bad. I'm not going to drag any of the actors. Like, I feel like the movie was pretty good. The acting and everything like that. Especially the kids. I mean, kids really aren't as developed as adults when it comes to, like, acting. Like, adults know how to, we've seen every kind of emotion that there is, so we know how to act it out. But kids, I feel like, are still young, but they did a really good job. So I'm not going to shit on anybody's acting. I feel like the acting wasn't too bad, especially the kids. I just feel like the story itself was very silly. And I don't know if all of the Children of the Corn movies are like this. I should probably watch them. I gotta admit, though, I was a little disappointed because I believe Children of the Corn was originally written by Stephen King. And usually Stephen King writes, like, masterpieces. They are usually classics that go down in history as, like, some of the scariest stuff ever. But this was just kind of like, it was absurdly silly to me. It was like, how did the parents and all these adults lose against children? Like, even if there is, like, okay, I think, honestly, I think I could take on all 10 kids by myself. I'm not joking. Like, how hard is it? Like, you could literally push them over and they start crying. That's how easy kids are to win. So, like, the fact that, like, a police officer and, like, all of these fully grown adults lost against kids, it's just kind of crazy to me. Okay, let's just up the numbers a little bit. If like 12 children came running at me right now and attempted to kill me, I think I could still come out of that on top. I do. I really believe that. I mean, as they're coming, you could like literally just pop. One down, pop. Another one. They're all crying. They're all holding their knees. They all got boo-boos on their knees. Wee, 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 mama, mama, mama. Kid, you little twerp. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that was kind of silly. And it was a little heartbreaking in one scene, I will say that. There is a scene when, the kids do have some pretty sadistic ways of killing people too, but one of the ways they killed, like, a whole bunch of the adults, including one of the moms, it was actually Boleyn's mom. They dug this huge, like, probably 10-foot hole in the ground in the field, and they were using the adults as, like, they gassed them in the prison to make them unconscious, and then they took the bodies and dumped them into this huge hole in the field. And I guess they were using the humans as, like, a fertilizer for the corn. So they had all these adults, like, piled on top of each other in this huge hole, and then they all woke up and they're all begging the kids, like, some of them are crying, like, the mom was like, please get us out of here, and they're all trying to get out, and some of them are threatening the kids. There's this one guy that said to Eden, he was like, wait till I get my hands on you, you little bitch. And the whole town is just like, there's a whole bunch of adults down there. And this kid comes along in a harvester or like a JCB and like starts dumping the soil, like the ground back into the hole, burying the parents alive. It was real messed up. Like, that was kind of heartbreaking, especially because Boleyn had to stand by and watch because she was still young. She was under 18. So although she was the oldest, she was still classed as a kid, and the kids were kind of including her in the plan to take over and be in charge of this town. But she had different ideas. She knew this was wrong, and she wanted to find a way to kill, like, all the kids. Or not kill them, but, like, win. Put a stop to the carnage. Yeah, she just has to watch her mom get buried alive, and that was pretty fucked up. Like, that was kind of sad. But the kids also, like, I remember this one scene, the pastor who was all in favor, like, everyone else opted to just have subsidies and, like, forget about the fields, but the pastor was one of the only ones that wanted to fight to keep the field. And the kids, like, got the pastor, and they, like, gouged out his eyes while he was alive, and he's screaming and everything like that, and it was pretty awful. And the funny thing is, Eden was an orphan, and so when all the other kids that day, when the boy walked into their orphanage and killed all of the adults, and then the kids got killed by, like, getting gassed out by the people of the town, Eden was outside the whole time, so she was okay, but everybody she knew, all of her friends and stuff, they all died. And the pastor was the one who actually not adopted her, but like fostered her. He took her in and like pretty much like took care of her, and this is how she paid him back. That's the thanks she get. And I feel like the kids were just so, like Eden especially, since she was the leader, I feel like they were all so gullible, which kids are. But it was quite obvious that Boleyn was like planning to revolt against them. And she wasn't being subtle about it. She was doing it very obviously. She looked so sus when like confronted and stuff like that. She just like was stumbling on her words when getting talked to by Eden. And it was just like so bad. Like I could see that she was suspicious, but the kids couldn't even see that. So it just shows how silly kids really are. Anyway, later on we find out the kids can sacrifice adults to he who walks in the field, and they do this in a barn, and Boleyn is saying to Eden, she's like, don't you understand? The he who walks isn't a real thing, it's all in your head, it's an imagination. But then sure enough, the freaking he who walks shows up, and it's actually a real thing, and it's basically like, I couldn't remember what they were calling it, so I had to look it up, but it is he who walks. But I was calling him Corn Man, because it's just this huge, like, it's like a humanoid creature that's enormous. It's probably like 20 feet tall or 15 feet tall, something like that. This huge thing, and it just looks like corn that's like intertwining with each other, and it's just created this humanoid figure. And it comes along, and they've got this one adult tied up in the barn, and the kids are all in the barn. Boleyn is in the barn. Everybody's watching. The barn doors are open. The cornfield's right outside the door. And this thing, the he who walks, comes in, just like grabs the girl from they've got her strung up in the barn. He grabs her and just like drags her off into the field. Like he's like walking with this girl by her leg. It was just kind of silly. The CGI looked really bad on that part. That's when I started to actually kind of laugh a little bit. It was like, this was pretty bad. Eden and the rest of the kids then want to burn Boleyn alive. So they pour like gasoline all over her, and they're about to strike this match. And she's like, don't! Are you stupid? If you burn me, everything in this barn, like there's so much flammable stuff. There's like hay and whatever. It's gonna burn everything, including your precious like cornfield. So Eden's like, yeah, you're right. So then later on, basically, she manages to escape Boleyn. She gets in a car, and Eden's also in the car. Surprise, surprise. Like, she's driving all through the field, and it's just like going through the cornfield really fast, and so that's all you see. And then the car breaks down, and sure enough, guess who's in the back seat? It's Eden. And she gets out with her, tries to like, Eden's got one of those the cattle guns like what you see in It, what Mike uses on the sheep in It, and she's about to shoot Boleyn in the head, and Boleyn says, before you do this, can I have a cigarette? So she has this lighter, and there's a whole trail of that gasoline or whatever it was. I wasn't really paying much attention at this part, but it's like trailed from the car where they are all the way through the field, everywhere in the field, back to the barn where there's like explosives, like big tanks of like kerosene and stuff like that. And she says, as she's about to light the cigarette, she says, you brought me right where I wanted to be, or something like that. And then she like drops the lighter, and it creates this trail of fire, which wouldn't really work like that in real life. But it just created this huge trail that traveled miles all the way back to the barn, burning the entire field in the process, killing the he who walks, and blowing up pretty much everything. Except here's the plot twist. It wasn't over. You find out later that Eden was the he who walks all along. I mean, she was, kind of. It just got so silly. It basically possessed her or something, I'm not sure, but she was all burned and stuff, and she was still there, and she, like, her voice had the he who walks' voice. It was kind of silly. Yeah, it was a pretty poor movie. Like, I mean, I just feel like the story was silly. The acting and everything, I can't really fault that. It was pretty good. The CGI on the He Who Walks was pretty bad. But yeah, I feel like the story was just kind of silly. Like, there is no way children could revolt against a town and win. That was where it kind of lost me in taking it seriously. From then on, though, it was just genuinely a fun watch. So if you want to watch it, definitely do. But I would say don't go into it expecting to be scared. Go into it expecting to have like a fun little time. But that's pretty much it for this video, guys. Let me know in the comment section, have you seen it? And what did you think of it? If you haven't, will you watch it? I'll see you in the next video. Peace out and chase your dreams.